Everybody, welcome to the community meeting. Yay, season 2, woo! Again, try to keep the meminess in the chat to a minimum so we don't miss anything important. Reactions and all that are good. Just try to avoid gift spam and entering many sentences. This meeting is going to be pretty fucking long. We have a lot to get through, so we're going to get right into it. I am recording the meeting, and I believe Tony's recording the backup. So we'll have this posted probably sometime this afternoon or tomorrow. So if you need to pop out, that's okay. Like I said, it is going to be a very long meeting. We will start off. So I'm going to give you a pretty fast timeline of everything that we're going to cover. So here's our meeting schedule. And everyone can behold Dr. Baby's best work yet. So we're going to go into player support. Player support will discuss the updates to the human contracts, warbats, and something called beef tickets, which are not actually called beef tickets, but I think beef tickets is funny. Then coordination will go over some of the coordination changes. Disciplinary will cover rule changes, a lingo rule update, and then our decision on alts. And then we'll get into RPO, which will get into the time skip, the war, lore in the world, medium magic, expectations, NPC/PCs, and then we'll get into the launch date. We will have time for questions at the end, but we are only going to take questions that are sort of on like this stuff that we're covering. If you have like a character workshop question where you're like, hey, will this work for my Blorbo? Please just open a roleplay overview ticket. We don't have time to go through everybody's workshops verbally. So if you're going to be asking a workshop question, please save that for a ticket. So I'm going to pass the proverbial mic off to Hart, who's going to talk about the changes that we're making to the mortality contract.
Yes, and as as nonsense as this picture is, it was worse. So, all right. Well, hello everyone. I'll be speaking on the state of the mortality contract for season 2. So to start with, after the events of season 1, the nature of what was sort of dubbed by the community as enchanted humans is better understood by the world at large. As such, there is actually a recognized term for those who are playing by the lore and mechanical restrictions of the contract, that term being entropic humans. The contract for entropic humans will be remaining largely the same. However, it will be going through a rewrite to improve readability and address some of the more frequently asked questions or unique situations that arose over the course of the first season. The primary changes that will be of interest to those who have experience with the contract are as follows. Firstly, there will be a rework of some of the quests involved for raising your blood percentage. So some of the quests that were there are going to be gone. There's going to be more detailed versions of some of the existing quests, that sort of thing. Secondly, the cooldown between blood percent quest completion will be reduced from 3 days to 1 day. So people should be able to complete those more quickly, and it should be a little easier to tell when you're able to submit your next quest. Thirdly, there will be a way to acquire vampiric steeds for humans. I know that was the biggest piece of feedback we received when it came to the contract, the situation with the horses. So while the specifics are still being ironed out, ultimately there will be a quest that will allow for human players to bind a horse for easy summoning. So we are also aware that the lore surrounding entropic humans was somewhat unclear and easy to miss during the first season. This will be corrected, and specifics relating to entropic humans and their place within the world at large will be included on our lore pages, rather than solely being located within the contract itself. And lastly, I just wanted to thank everyone who engaged with the system during season 1 and provided feedback and appreciation for the mortality contract. The introduction of playable humans was highly experimental, and it was really encouraging how much they were embraced by the community at large. So that is all for me, and I am going to pass it off to Vlur at this point.
All right. We have a whole slew of various tickets changes across all departments for the most part. I will be starting with Warbats. We are doing a Warbat rework. I'll go through the bullet points. Generally, the concept that we're going to be doing, okay, bear with me, is that Warbats are for two primary purposes. Okay. First off is all castle sieges require warbats. All of them, okay? If you want to do a castle siege, you gotta have a warbat for us to approve it. The second thing is that warbats are going to be specifically for admin moderated conflict resolution for ending disputes. Okay? So, for example, if you want to do a siege with some friends, you got to open a warbat for approval. Or, if you and Jimmy are having conflict and you want like an admin moderated and enforced consequences, warbats are for you. Okay? Our process is very much going to be focused around out of character before in character. Okay, so you open a warbat ticket first. It's the first thing you do. You discuss with the admins and the other parties on agree on terms within the ticket. The admins approve of the warbat, and then you send the in character. Okay? We don't want people sending in character warbats before we have had a chance to actually look at it and review it and approve it as an admin team. This is very, very important for something I'll talk about in a bit. And then once admins have approved it, you send the in character warbat. Be all dramatic about it, and then you play it out in character with admin moderation as needed. Okay. Um, a big change that we're adding to Warbats, because we are focusing them in, is a 48-hour negotiating time limit. Okay? Now, the way this works is that Warbats are for ending conflicts. Okay? When you open a Warbat and we get everyone inside, you will have 48 hours to agree on how you will fight and what the potential outcomes will be. If you cannot come to an agreement within the 48-hour time limit, the admins will step in and set default means of conflict, how you're going to fight this out, okay? If you can't decide on how this is going to work and there are conflicts and I don't want to do this, oh, what I want to do that, well, the admins are going to step in and be like, okay, it has been 48 hours, you have had your chance, the filibuster ends exactly, and you can choose between either the PvP option of a 1v1 duel or the non-PvP option of a chess game. Okay. Um in addition, hopefully there you guys are at least able, to come to an agreement on the outcome, but in a worst case scenario, the admins will also step in and decide on a fair outcome based on the discussion thus far that we think serves both sides. No, you will get massive brownie points, big brownie points, if you agree on the terms of your warbat out of character before opening one. If you guys talk to each other like adults and human beings, and you figure out all your warbat details, and then you open up a warbat ticket with that already agreed upon and good to go, huge brownie. That would be great. We can look it over. Everyone's already on the page. We can approve it. Snappy, easy clap. Okay, okay. Now, another thing that we're going to be tweaking is the answer to this question: who can open warbats? Okay, who can open warbats? We're going to be more strict on who can open a warbat. These are not just willy-nilly things anyone can open any longer. If you open a warbat, we will ask you to justify the reason for why your character would do so. Warbats are not "I hate you, bats." Warbats are serious, right? It's kind in my mind, it's kind of like in those those fantasy shows where an individual like invokes the right of like some old ancient tradition to resolve a dispute, right? You are evoking a warbat. Like that's like, they're evoking a warbat. It's like it's a big deal, right? So when you open a warbat, that will be one of the primary things we ask. Okay, is that like why are you opening a warbat? Why is your character going to be evoking the end all be all of a warbat? Okay. And if the admin team deems your character does not have sufficient reason or involvement in a situation to go full warbat, we will decline it. So, for some examples, right, to kind of get the brain churning. So let's say you meet this guy Terry, who is really nice and really friendly, right? Once. You never actually talked to Terry again after that point, but you heard that Jimmy, that bastard, murdered Terry, bro. How could he? And so you open a warband, and you're like, I met Terry once, and now I want revenge. Yeah, no, you were not entwined with Terry nearly enough to warrant evoking a warbat. Go send some angry letters and beat Jimmy up in the open world a bit yourself. Okay, okay, goddamn Jimmy, right? Um, Another example, for example, let's say you encounter Tina, okay? Good old Tina. And Tina is this caretaker of this big magical tree, all right? But those leaves from that tree, damn bro, they make you feel real nice when you eat them, okay? So you start harvesting the leaves and you start eating them, okay? And so Tina, who believes that, that the tree is her child, gets really angry in character that you are eating her child, right? You were made aware of this, and finally Tina warbats you over it. And this is valid, okay? You are eating Tina's tree child. There are consequences for fucking with lore owned by other people in negative ways. Okay, do not be surprised Pikachu when people you are fucking with come for your shins. Okay, so that would be valid. And then the last example that I want to provide, right, is that let's say you start up some conflict RP with Marvin. Okay, it's fun for the first week, but then it starts spreading and it starts getting stressful and it's really taxing on you. You can't. It's exhausting. It's taxing. It's brutal, and you can't keep it going. Okay, you need this to end for your own mental health. You talk to Marvin about it, express the stress, and you both agree to put a final end to the conflict in a way that is satisfactory and official. So you open a warbat, you go through the process, and you officially end the conflict publicly so it no longer continues and draws on, and you can put that behind you and continue your RP in a productive and happy manner, right? So this is Warbat land. Admin moderated conflict ending. Okay? Now, because we are scoping warbats in this manner, okay, warbats are no longer the place to discuss your conflict. And so we will be introducing another new ticket type. Conflict tickets. The name is in workshop, and Aku really likes beef tickets. I have them written down as conflict discussion tickets, and on the slide it's conflict tickets. So, we'll figure out a name eventually. But these tickets are for discussing your conflict with other people. Okay? Out of character communication with regards to conflict is critical. And we know that it can get stressful to do that in DMs. Thus, these conflict discussion tickets are meant for you to have essentially like a private table, okay, on the other side of the room, in the same room as the admins, right? To discuss. You come in, you're like, hey, can we talk about our conflict here? We're like, hey, have a chair. Here's some chairs. Here's a table. You want some snacks? All right, hey, you guys can talk over there. We'll be over here on the other side of the room if you need us. Okay. And so it's a location. The goal is we want to empower and encourage you all to talk about your conflict RP out of character as much as possible. And so these conflict discussion tickets are meant to be a safe place for you to do that with the admins in the room over there. So if you need mediation or if you need assistance or an executive decision or anything, we're right there with you. Okay. And then from there, I will pass it over to Tony.
Right. So, speaking of ticket changes, we also have some pretty big changes in the works for events. Previously, events are kind of been undefined. What's an admin event? What's not an admin event? How many events can I have? And we've always kind of just adapted to it as on case by case. So, over the break, we decided that's gotten pretty out of hand because sometimes we'll spend 3+ weeks working on one person's event, and then they get upset that one thing didn't go the way they want, or there was a miscommunication. And so instead, we'll be changing the form to expect some more information, and we'll have a full written out list of what is an admin event to kind of give you an idea. Anything that requires us to spawn mobs, provide your character with buffs, or give some sort of custom item or reward. Now, keep in mind you can also earn some custom items through RPO tickets. Like, they're not strictly to events, but that would be things that classify there. Now, if you just need like somebody to act as your long lost father, if you need teleports and renames, those aren't admin assisted events. You'll still have one big admin assisted event per season with the option to have 2 donated to you. That's not changing. But several things about submitting your event will be expected, such as the timeline up front would be really nice to know. Some events ended up going on for almost 2 months last season, and that, it changed hands several times, the purpose changed, and that's not really the intended purpose. What sort of relationship NPCs have, if the outcomes plan to be fixed, because there's been some stress in the past between EVs and the people requesting events, where it's like the EVs were told initially to make it difficult, which they interpreted as, okay, well, it's possible for the players to lose, but that's not what the players wanted. So these sort of expectations are what we're hoping to outline. That way it's stress-free and doesn't create unnecessary problems between event volunteers and players, because without either of them, we don't have either. So that is the direction we're looking to take coordination tickets. So you can expect us to be asking for a lot more what's it called? Events. Crayon, I will take your question down and write it for when we take questions at the end. But now I think we're also going to be doing some rule changes based on the feedback form we submitted at the end of the season. And I think Naku is going to talk about part of that.
Hello. So I'm going to go over the kind of the quick ones, and then we're going to circle back to Tony, who's going to cover some of the big rule changes that we made. And I apologize if you can hear the dogs. They are wrestling right now. They're very excited because they were just outside. So we are going to allow players to jump fences and walls with frog, wolf, and horse jumps. So, like, if you have a balcony next to a staircase and somebody frog jumps onto that balcony, that's now going to be illegal. You can wolf jump through people's fences. So keep that in mind when you are building your castles this season, that if people can, like horse jump onto a balcony or frog jump onto a balcony and then break into your house, totally fine. However, you can't break doors. So if you, frog jump onto a balcony, but there's just a closed door up there, you can be on that balcony, but you can't break any doors without a war bat. But you can break and enter. You can't break, but you can enter, if that makes sense. So we're allowing, if you want to jump into somebody's garden, but if you keep in mind, if you frog jump into somebody's house and they get stuck, we won't save you. You are now stuck in their house. Consequences. If you are doing things that are glitches that are not intended by Stunlock to break into people's houses, that is still a rule break. It has to be things that mechanically you are able to do. So if you're like glitching through walls, glitching over walls in a way that you're not supposed to, we will still bonk the fuck out of you for that. So behave. You can, do things. If you rob someone's place because you jumped into their garden and it turns out that all of their seeds are just in a box in their garden, you are required to still leave a robbery note. We will be tweaking the robbery and burglary rules so that they're more easily digestible, because I know that's something that people had some confusion on last season. Another new rule is that we are not going to allow special characters in-game name. So like Thorin and Thiazi with their pain in the ass peas, we're not going to allow that anymore. You can still use special characters in the Discord if you'd like, but in-game names, you have to use just normal words. Just like the standard English letters. Just because it's a pain in the butt for us during events. It's a pain in the butt for other players if you like get locked out of your, sigil. If we're doing super sigils for events, it just becomes an issue and it's obnoxious. So we're just gonna say you can't do that anymore. And then if sorry, my dogs are being very loud. 1 second. And then the other thing is that we are going to keep hood rules as they were last season. So we will still be using the hood mod, the mod that hides nameplates. However, we are adding that middle ground rule. So if you are in a tournament or a warbat setting, you can ask, you can be like, hey, can you adjust your hood so I can see your vitality? And they have to comply if you're in a tournament or like a warbat setting, a more formal setting. But if you're, if you're in the open world and someone is, trying to mug you, you do not, you can ask them to adjust their hood, but they don't have to. The goal is to, find a middle ground to, avoid frustrations when it comes to duels and stuff, but allow criminals to maintain anonymity. So, if you're out there committing a crime, you can keep your nameplate hidden. But if you're at an official duel, even if you're keeping your identity a secret, you will have to reveal your name if whoever you're dueling asks. However, if you ask someone to reveal for the sake of your duel, you cannot metagame who they are. You still don't know. They're adjusting the hood so you can see their health bar for the sake of the duel, but you in character need to pretend that you still don't know who they are. So please be careful. Please don't meta. And then somebody asked if we were able to make it so it didn't do it for the other headpieces. It's just the game coding. We have not found a way to tie it just to hoods. So maybe someday, but I don't think that's how it works. And then the other last note was that we are going to keep the ability to... Are we not allowed to break doors for the purpose of breaking in? No, you cannot break anybody's doors without a warbat. That's always been a rule. If you're at a castle that's in decay, you can break through doors. But if a castle is not in decay, you may not break doors. That's griefing at that point. We're going to keep the hearing through walls. So if you can hear somebody and they're talking their super secret evil plan in their room and you're standing outside of their house and you can hear it still. We're going to keep that change. It was overwhelmingly, people liked what it added to spy RPs. So we are keeping the ability to hear through walls. I'm going to pass the mic back over to Tony, and he's going to talk about our change to our lingo expectations and the changes that we're making to alts.
All right. So the first we'll talk about lingo. So a lot of modern slang and sometimes excuses for waiting on a response from the admin got over repetitive or just bottomed out to referring to them as greater spirits, which for a lot of folks came back to us as immersion breaking. So the expectation that we're hoping to set is that if you're waiting for an admin or something and you need to buy time, we're going to ask that y'all axe the whole greater spirits thing and go for more flavor for your character. Like something like my experiments aren't quite done yet, or I need time to perform another ritual, or just, let you know how it goes. That sort of thing. Constantly bringing up greater spirits, it just gets frustrating at a point. Really, we want spirits to just be for AFK, if that's what you're trying to do. And then the second thing that we're changing is we asked a kind of important question on the feedback form before, I need to consider more fully before a conclusion. That's fantastic too. We asked how everyone felt about alts, and we got a pretty overwhelming amount of folks who agreed that alts were frustrating. Roughly 40% of y'all just said get rid of alts. 20% of y'all said also get rid of alts or limit them in some way. So we're looking at like 60% of the people who participated were like, alts are kind of frustrating or figure out a way that makes them work better. We don't want to necessarily get rid of alts entirely, but it's enough of a frustrating point for players that we have to consider something. And so the solution we came up with was limiting folks to one active whitelisted character per season. If your character dies, you can whitelist a new character, or if your character leaves, they're not coming back that season. In future seasons, when we have multiple arcs, they can come back in the second arc, but for the time being, we're just going to do one active whitelisted character, and you'll be able to swap to an alt once per season. We don't want people switching every week. We don't want people switching every day. It's the hope is to not lose people's RP threads especially if characters are tied down pretty closely. Um, and so when you go to start considering a new character, you will open a ticket with us here at Player Support, and we'll try and see if we can help wrap up any story beats you've got going on or help you navigate through switching to a new character. But we are going to try being a little bit more restrictive on alts and see how it goes. As always, we'll have feedback forums mid and end of season, and y'all can tell us if you like it or don't like it, and we'll look to adapt it again. But based on the feedback we got, we're going to try being a little bit more restrictive on alts this time around and see how it goes. And then I think at this point we're gonna start talking about the actual fun stuff, the story stuff.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Uh, I've been fucking vibrating in my seat waiting for my turn. PMI? What the fuck do you mean PMI, man? Yeah, it's been 200 years I've been waiting for this moment. Listen, let me cook, let me cook. Let's start. There is, yeah, 200 years. It's been 2 whole centuries. And the world has been fucking busy in those 200 years. That's, yeah, I'm not gonna make it up on the fly. Let me start improvising. So we start with big fucking war. Let's keep it at that. This this is the season 2 map for now. You can see the plots are gonna be taken off by who or by what. Who knows? Am I right or am I right? But let's talk about the world state. That's the interesting part. War, right? Magic returns. Wow, all of a sudden. And instead of wonder and all, Fae and people flying all over the hall, world responds with war and control, and everyone wants territory and predation. Everyone is afraid for themselves and for their own territory. Let's look at the big ones. The biggest country that is going to be perpetrating that war, or was perpetrating the war, is the Empire of Drukhard. They're the primary aggressor. These are the big imperialistic guys that were afraid of being surrounded by magic wielders, so they went out and eradicated the magic wielders. Their neighbors, Voltraxes, gone. They were decimated. Half their city is a ashland that is just a prison. The other half is a forced colony upon them. Voltraxis is cooked. It is over for them. They are still half a country. There is more lore. This is, by the way, this is a quick TLDR because there is a lot of lore, and I'm not gonna read that shit word for word. But they have been uh, turned into a polished imperial protectorate. They're gone. The empire turns its eyes to the other neighbors, the technocratic dominion. A huge war starts with those two that lasts a significant amount of time. It ends with a two crippled nations is the best way to put it. The technocratic dominion, the logic driven state that views magic as a disease. They responded by creating these techno necrotic armies. Think corpses that are walking by magic and electricity mixed together. It's essentially Black Brew, but better. These guys have these armies that are reanimated, mechanized dead. The war keeps escalating. Don't you dare say servitor. The war escalates until the current empress at that period in time sacrifices herself by detonating a logic assembly, the head building of the technocratic dominion. It explodes. The empire loses their queen. The technocrats lose their big fucking assembly and half their government. Both sides end crippled as of this moment. They are still retreating in mutual devastation. Neither side has won yet. Currently what we have is that the empire has a new empress that is paranoid, legacy obsessed, and reigniting the war to prove herself in her family's name. She has a son, Prince Roderick, who is quietly questioning the empire's view on the world. But that is neither here nor there because guess what? Technocratic Dominion has survived a little bit. Don't you dare say Frank. He has the Technocratic Dominion has built up a tiny little bit. They have half their government back, booting up everything back up again. They are restructuring their government. They're going to be in full swing. Who knows? Maybe soon, maybe in like 100 years. Who knows? Both empires are crippled and rebuilding, and who knows what's going to happen. That's the world state for now. What else? There is more. How do I put this? There is a lot more lore for a bunch of different countries. Every little country, small or big, got a lore update and a small little revamp. The war affected everyone is the best way to put it. Um, this is the big part. That's the TLDR that I did want to share. There is a more juicy bit. I think it's the next slide, I believe. Is that the next slide, Naku? No, where is it?
Oh, well, I'll come back to that.
There it is. Yeah. Nah, 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 nah. Ratlings is not as interesting. I promise. I am better. I am better. No, no, I'm kidding. We have Leviathans first. I want to talk about this. Ratlings, I believe, is someone else's section. Let's talk about the Leviathans. They are not, in fact, big fish. Well, not literally. They are sort of. So, big question. What are Leviathans, right? Leviathans are an incredibly rare phenomena that takes place when a daemon is lucky enough to absorb enough magic to become a different being. They are not actual Leviathans, they are just named that because they're big. They're cool, it's a cool name. They are significantly weaker than a realm champion like Dracula or, Solaris or anyone that else that Luminance decides to grace with light, but they are only one rank underneath them in strength. That one singular level is still immense, as a singular Leviathan would be manhandled by Dracula, but a normal vampire cannot even come close to manhandling a Leviathan. So, to, yeah, boo power levels, boo you. So, the Leviathans carry environmental changes with them as they evolve, leading to either suffering or quote unquote changes. An example would be what happened to Velgrath, which there will be more to read about that. I am keeping that shit in my pocket. Until it gets posted, I'm not talking about this because it's a lot. The Leviathans will have a way to be defeated and/or beat down, but it will require some fairly significant effort to actually achieve so successfully. Think of them as mini bosses that have an actual backing in the form of servants. You might be wondering what exactly would serve this giant beast of a demon, and they're going to be called warlocks in this meeting for sake of yeah, they're turbo big demons. They are going to be called warlocks for sake of logic. It's a lot easier to link it together, but they're not going to be called warlocks in character. They're going to have a different name, but similar function. So these guys, warlocks, they won't be called warlocks in character. Obviously, we're not in D&D, but it's the best term to clearly make it known out of character what exactly is going on. These leviathans, each one of them have special prerequisites and their own likes and dislikes for those who attempt to gain favor for one. For clarity, I will reveal a few things, such as the fact that a daemon maybe cannot receive favor directly. Who knows? It's a different. Think about that. It's a very interesting schematic if you think about it. Uh, the other thing that we should definitely bring up is the fact that there are multiple, not just one or two, and they are not all within a singular location. So if you manage to curry favor of one of them, and you, for example, decide to move to the other side of the goddamn world, that favor isn't going to do you any good. You are too far away to actually have any good perks or any eventual niceties. They are null because you are too far away from your patron. This is to say that, yeah, you cannot turn in one. You cannot just snap your finger and be like, yeah, I'm a Leviathan of quote unquote. That's not a thing. They are going to eat you if you say that. So to say this is to say when if you're too far away, this is to say that you can absolutely leave Bardorn for like 2 or 3 weeks. Be like, I'm gonna go on a hiatus for like 4 weeks, and I'm gonna do some writing in, like, for example, an RPO ticket with admins, see what I can do. You could potentially maybe become a patron of a different Leviathan in those like 4 weeks that you were gone. But you're not gonna have any eventual perks when you decide to come back in character to Vardorn. Now that that's out of the way, let's move down to the actual juicy part of the Leviathans themselves. There are going to be 9 spread out over the world. They are very vicious little things. Each one has a personal preference for a certain school of magic. This does not mean they exclusively only devour that sort of magic, however, just that they prefer it. It's a very good detail to keep in mind if you're interested in this. The locations of each Leviathan is said below. I was gonna post it. Where is it? Just easier to keep track of it, but I'm gonna read it out loud. So these are the four that we are gonna reveal for now. You have the Storm one that is chilling in the Technocratic Dominion, the Holy one that is in Frankelberg, the Unholy in the Deadlands, the Illusion one is in Battlethon, unsurprisingly, and the Frost one is in Velgrath. You may have noticed that there are a lot missing from this list because they're supposed to be in line. Well, Sully, here it is. Their last known locations are unknown to all of you guys. There are 5 missing. Who knows where they are currently? Maybe they are in Vardorn, maybe they're not. Maybe they decided to fuck off elsewhere. Who knows? That's something to theory craft until the season actually starts. Yep, fuck around and find out. But so far that's everything for the Leviathans for now. The rest, mostly details like the dislikes and likes, you're gonna have to experiment and pray you don't get eaten.
And then I believe.
Okay.
Go, Pizza, go!
Yes, hello. I am here to introduce you to your lovely neighbors, the unrivaled military force of Noctum. They have decided that without Dracula returning yet, to take matters into their own hands and cause a bit of hectic chaos, not really chaos, to make a good foothold for themselves inside of Vardoran. Um, their forces are, oh my gosh, sorry, I'm very, um, I'm sorry, I'm blanking right now. That's my fault. Their forces and position in the world is to defend themselves, so they will not take any declaration of war against them very nicely. So better keep an eye out for that. Um, However, Noctum isn't just a military force that you're going to have to live alongside and deal with in battle. Sometimes, your relations with Noctum will depend on how you interact with them. So, whether that means you want to join their efforts and work alongside the Legion to further their goals, or maybe help yours, um, or creating a military force to attempt to rival theirs, or just ignore the Legion altogether. It's like, maybe don't deal with Noctum if you don't want to. Each of these are valid ways you can interact with them, or not interact with them. However, while there are those lovely avenues for you to mess around with Noctum, that doesn't mean they're all going to be free to do whatever you want with. So if you actually want to start a war, prepare for Noctum to come back in force to teach you why it was a very bad idea to challenge them. You will need to fight tooth and nail, so be prepared if you decide to take a bit of a war effort against them. Um, and to quell any worries that people had from last season, you do not need to interact with them constantly or worry about them. If you truly do wish to ignore that and just hang out with your friends and people you like hanging out with, that is entirely up to you. That is your little sneak peek into Noctum.
Perfect. All right, I'm gonna circle back to Rotlings because I put their slide in the wrong space, wrong spot. So Rotlings will be added as a playable race. Rotlings will not have a contract, but there are a couple of rules that I wanted to bring up. These will be posted as soon as we do like the lore updates. They'll be available in the race section. So Rotlings are a distinct species that has emerged in the wake of the Age of Entropy. They are beings who resonate with entropic magics and carry the distinct aura of it with them in day-to-day life. The entropic bonds between them are far weaker than they were in the prior age. Rotlings are only able to discern emotions and the general well-beings of their fellows, and only those who are within their immediate geographical area. So for those of you that were in the Rotling bonds last season, you will only have the ability to send emotions and do like is Jim reconstituting right now? He sure is. Looks like he's fine. He's reconstituting. Sort of checks on people. You will not be able to send images, video, words, and you will be at the tier 1 status. You will have the affliction buff, but you won't be able to go up into the like higher tiers. In the current era, new rotlings may only manifest in the following ways. If an entropic human perishes, they may rise from the grave as a rotling. If a rotling shares blood with, bites, and then drains a human, upon death, that human will rise as a rotling and not a vampire. Rotling-flavored daemons, entropic daemons, manifest from the natural world just like daemons from other schools of magic. New rotlings cannot be born. They don't reproduce that way. And Fae and existing vampires cannot be resired into rotlings. You are a rotling when you rise the first time, and that's it. So they're not, so if you start the season as a regular vampire and you're like, oh, I want to become a rotling, unfortunately you can't do that. It's your species. Just like you can't species change from a vampire to a daemon, you cannot turn from a daemon into a rotling. If you're a blood daemon, you can't turn into an entropic daemon. Rotlings are undead creatures. They are weak to sun, garlic, silver, and must consume blood and magic to survive. They will have access to a private channel where they can send, information along the Rotling Bond network. However, you only have access to the channel while within Vardarin. If the character leaves the country, they cannot access the network. So if you have them, like at the end of the season, if you leave for the season, you can't talk in there anymore. If your character goes on vacation to Veltraxis, they cannot talk in there while they're on vacation. It's purely based off of your direct vicinity. If your character last season was ever a tier 1, 2, or 3 contract bearer, you may whitelist as an existing rotling. Even if you were cured, you could have manifested as a rotling over the 200-year time skip. So where the entropy just wound itself too tightly around your core, and you are now just a rotling. You are fundamentally changed. You are a different creature. You do not have to do this, but you must do so at the time of whitelist. So if you were afflicted last season, and you whitelist as a normal vampire, and then 3 weeks into the season you decide you want to be a rotling, you cannot manifest. All manifestations happened in like the first 10 years of the time skip. So it was like immediately as the magic was settling, so you cannot manifest as a rotling now if you had the contract last season. As far as culture goes, rotlings by nature tend to gather in tight-knit groups. They feel each other's pain and joy. More so than any of the other undead races, rotlings are highly social and tend to be kind towards one another. They are prone to gathering into isolated communities, which they call clusters. This is in part due to the wave of negative reactions that they garnered at the end of the last era. Many blamed them for the lack of magic, and they were met with violence as a result. Remnants of the Scions of Entropy count themselves among the rotlings, though they are a minority. Most perished in the last era or vanished on the winds. With 2 centuries between the end of the last era and now, there are several burgeoning groups of rotlings pushing to be recognized as the undead equal of their peers. Why should they be punished for the actions of others from decades, centuries ago? Rotlings are not the majority anywhere, and they have yet to really gain a foothold of their own. Rotlings have turned their faces towards this new, hopeful era, not to turn the wheel, but to build something bigger and better and more harmonious for all. Some of them tell tale of a longing whisper that speaks to them in the dark of night, something within their bonds that coaxes them to wander and explore. Some worry it is the remnants of the high fae and the wheel luring them to their doom, but others think the strange whispers are a large cluster, trying to call them towards safety they may find in numbers. Rotlings who listen to those whispers may find themselves back where this all started, back to the heart of Vardarin. So those are rotlings. And then moving right along, we are going to talk about medium magic, and I believe that will be handled by Duke.
Hello. So yes, we will have a more comprehensive guide about medium magic coming out than I'm going to be talking about today because I don't want to talk to you guys for 30 minutes. You'll all get bored. So, last season, we said things would be low magic, but we didn't really give you guys a concrete line saying like, hey, this is what you can and can't do, which led to some things last season leaning into medium magic, especially as we neared the finale. We will be providing you guys a non-exhaustive list. So what that means is we will not have everything spelled out because we don't know everything you guys have in mind. We're just going to give you some examples. If something that you want to do is not on the list, and it's not like, ooh, I want to make magic sparkles happen. It's like, I want to do this big ritual. Please open a ticket. and we will be happy to let you know if it's on the list or not, and we'll update the list when something new comes up. If it doesn't fit, we are more than happy to help you workshop to find something that achieves a similar goal that does fit within the magical guidelines. And if your goal can't be achieved, then we'll help you find a new character direction if you need to. If you have a big character goal for your person, put it in your whitelist and we'll workshop it with you. So what does medium magic mean? Medium magic is generally described as the widespread knowledge of magic's existence without it being a commonplace in every single person's everyday life. Obviously, we are all role playing as magical beings, so we all get to use magic. So in this case, we're talking more power levels. Things are not as grand and fantastical as they were before the Age of Entropy and the big calamity that nearly destroyed the world. However, magic is coming back. This allows for the casting of more powerful spells, creation of rituals, and things being easier. So rituals that were very hard to do last season will be easier this season. Just to touch on some things that will not be allowed, full stop, and then some things that will be allowed. We are not dipping into realm walking. That is high magic. The summoning of gods, achieving true immortality via becoming a lich or a godlike entity or a god. We're not going to have that. You also can't do scrying. So you can't just magically see what other people are doing. But some stuff that will be coming back, everything pretty much that was done last season will be allowed. Whirlpools, communing with entities, occultism, so talking with spirits, communing with spirits, sending vibes and feelings through blood bonds, but not full-blown messages, and everyone's ever-loved castle warranty. Those are all still doable and easier to do. Once the list comes out, please, please, please ask questions. We want to work with you to help you create the best story possible within the limits of the setting. No one on the admin team wants to be the bad guy and have to retcon something you did because it broke the setting and now we have to fix it. So please, if you aren't sure, ask. I'm not going to be taking questions all day about every little thing that you might want to do with your character. That's what tickets are for. If you have big questions about media magic, please save them for the end. But other than that, I'm going to give the stage back to Naku for NPC PCs.
NPC PCs. Okie dokie. So this is the new big thing that we're adding as a community next season. So I'm gonna disseminate a shit ton of information. I'm not expecting you to memorize this. I'm going to pretty much read verbatim off of the contract just to give you an idea of what it is and talk a little bit about why we want to do this. But just know that this will all be available in text form pretty quickly following the meeting. So NPC PCs are intended to fill the gaps in NPC factions, providing the admin team with more bodies at events, as well as to provide an avenue for players who want a more hands-on opportunity with the admin plot. You will be a part of our meat and potatoes. While players will have control of their NPC PC's personality, looks, elements of their backstory, there are certain aspects of the character that may be added at the request of an admin. We may ask someone if they are willing to play a general's bodyguard or childhood friend, or say, hey, we need someone to play Billy Bob's nemesis. You know, that sort of thing. More so than player characters, NPC PCs' backgrounds must be completely approved by RPO prior to them being greenlit. Because of that, you may not make up vital backstory pieces on the fly. We want people who are comfortable playing a very preset, very established role. We don't want any surprises from NPC PCs. NPC PCs must also apply for the position. There will be interviews and lengthy discussion about what best role suits your skill set and what you bring to the table, and not everyone that applies may be selected to partake. Our requirements for being an NPC PC: you must have played on SoV for the majority of the prior season before applying for NPC PC status. We will only be selecting players that we're familiar with. We don't want to bring people in that we don't know, because we don't know, about their reliability. We don't know if they're like, going to be like serial bleeders, if they're going to be crazy. Veru, think of this as EV plus. These are people that are playing long-term, like season-long NPC roles as their player character. This is a good point of mentioning. This is not a way to skirt the no alts rule. If you're playing an NPC PC, you don't get an additional player character. This is your main character for the season. So this is your player character. People who are a part of the NPC CP pool may be asked to play EV roles during events of just like random Noctum Guard number 1 or, that sort of thing. So we may ask them to fill EV roles before we ask the general EV pool at wide, specifically for admin plot EVing, but they are going to have one primary player character that's also an NPC. Another requirement is you must be in good standing on the disciplinary track. If you are on last strike or a frequent flyer, we may reject you on the basis of past behavior. We want to know that these are people that, folks that aren't going to randomly go, RDMing people or, causing this sort of issues. So, if you're in gay baby jail, you unfortunately cannot be an NPC PC. You have to be able and willing to play for the duration of the season. Please don't apply if you're going to play them once and then we won't see you again. If you don't think that you have the time to put in a lot of hours, we may not select you for the role. That said, if you're like, hey, I need something to do because I want to play for the first 3 weeks of the season and then I'm going to be in Europe for the rest of the season, so I don't want to roll up in a player character, but can I play with you for 3 weeks and then get perma'd when it's time for my vacation to start? Sure, we'd love to have you. Come get perma'd in 3 weeks. And then PCs will also be required to log their activity every single day. It does not have to be a big paragraph. You can say, I talked to Jim, I started friendships with these 10 people, and I made an enemy out of Jim. You can just say, I went around and collected quartz and literally talked to nobody. It does not have to be long. Please don't give us a fucking wall. But we need to keep a kind of a pulse on where relationships are developing so that we can write around them. So we really need people that are going to have the gumption to write us a paragraph when they get off for every day. We do that with all of our NPCs on the back end. We are like, here's a summary of what the judge did today. And we want that communication to be extended to NPC PCs, so you need to participate in the admin communication of here's what I did today, because if you are secretly developing an alliance with somebody and the people that are writing for your NPC PC don't know that, we might run into some weeds. And then here are the rules and guidelines. I'm going to go over this really fast. So NPC PCs may only perma with the permission of an admin. Similarly, NPC PCs may be asked to perma at any time for story reasons. This is the big one. Please do not sign up if you are not okay with your character potentially being perma'd for story reasons. If you're like, hey, I'm really attached to this character, I'd like to play them for the bulk of the season, because I would be really sad if I perma'd halfway through, because I think that's too late to start a new character. Obviously, we'll be flexible. We're happy to work and be like, okay, we probably won't perma your character at the halfway point. We might, perma them at the 3/4 point, that sort of thing. Grievous wounds are the same. Please do not maim your NPC PC without admin permission. They cannot lose an arm, a hand, a leg, a soul. Don't give yourself any grievous, long-standing wounds without consent. NPC PCs cannot have any sleepovers at player estates, and they cannot leave their sigils. Full stop. You can't leave them for events. You can't leave your sigil. You are in your NPC PC sigil, and you will stay there. You cannot invite people into your sigil either. Because all of the castle hearts for the NPC factions, you're going to join the NPC clan and then have access to like 9 castles. So because of that, you cannot invite anyone to the sigil ever for any reason. If that means that your bestie bleeds out at your feet, that means your bestie bleeds out at your feet. NPC PCs cannot give away any resources from their castles or any gear without the express consent of an admin. NPC PCs may not begin romance arcs without admin permission. Sometimes romance arcs just don't make sense for the character that we need played. Fundamental character shifting choices such as betrayal, marriage, dating, or oh heck, I just sired someone, that sort of thing, all of those major story beats have to be made with the permission of an admin. So please be communicating about like where you think stories are going. Please be communicating out of character for where you think arcs are going with whoever you're connecting with. I already read that line. Boop. This is not a staff role. Please do not mini-moderate or disseminate any story information with the authority of an admin. You need to be, disseminating the information that we want you to disseminate and nothing more. Pacing is very important for the admin story, so do not be the guy that gives away all the secrets. And if you see a rule break, you need to tick it as usual. If you're not a mod, if you're not an admin, we really don't want people mini-modding. You may not share any of the story's secret sauce if you are trusted with reveals and plot twists, and share them in character or out of character before the planned time of the reveal. It will likely result in the NPC-PC being removed from play for the season, and the player in question will be ineligible from partaking in future NPC-PC roles. That's the really, really big one. If someone is a secret evil traitor and your character spills the beans that they're a secret evil traitor before that plot point was supposed to come out, if you blow up the story, we're gonna blow up your character. That's how it goes. If something happens and an NPC-PC needs to step away, we may have someone else fill the role for the sake of the story. It's like how at the split, we all know that the fellow that was playing the original Ruthven wanted to step back, and so Hangry filled the role and played Ruthven for the second half of season 0. If something like that happens, where like your mom dies and you're like, I just can't do this, but your story is very, 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 your character is very, very important to the story, we may have someone else step into that role, just to ensure that threads don't get dropped. If you decide you want to step back from the NPC-PC role and just transition into being a player character, you cannot do so on the NPC-PC. We will either perma them, write them off, have them be played by somebody else, or bench them. If you are like, hey, I want to continue playing this character as a normal player character, we're going to tell you no, and you're going to have to just re-whitelist somebody else. If you're NPC-PC permas and you want to whitelist a standard player character, totally fine. Go forth, whitelist, become player. Just know that your NPC-PC cannot make that jump with you. So they're a hybrid role. Obviously we understand that everyone has things going on. I usually take like a full week off at some point during the season, and my character goes on vacation while I'm just, decompressing and not looking at the Discord server for days. If you need that time, you can also do that. You can be like, hey, can my character go on a quest to Veltraxis so I can have because I'm going, on vacation or something? Totally fine. Just communicate with us, let us know what your schedule is, if you're gonna step away and all that good stuff. This contract is entirely voluntary, so obviously if you're like, I wouldn't be comfortable with playing a character that might get perma'd, that sort of thing, that's okay. Just play a player character. This is just for people that want to really have hands-on EV plus experience with the admin story. They really want to be a part of the enemy faction, or not enemy. Enemy's the wrong word. They want to be a part of the admin character faction, whatever form that may take. If you want to join Noctum, apply. Be a Noctum person. So you can open a ticket immediately post meeting and we'll start having those conversations. Just keep in mind, not everyone will be accepted because we do have, I don't know how many people are going to apply. But we don't want to have half of the server be NPC-PCs. So that's how it goes. Alrighty. So our launch date is January 17th. Yay! Our whitelists will open early January. So hip hip hooray, a whole month. Yeah, we are just a month away. So we're hard at work in the back ends. Yay! We will be getting into questions now. I will say, please only raise your hand if you have a question. If you have general meminess or comments, please, keep them to yourself for now. We do have the discussion threads if you want to discuss things. And we'll just we'll get rolling. If you have character workshop questions about hey, can I do this with Leviathans? Please open an RPO ticket. We don't have time to answer all character workshop seasons. Season 2, thank you. That's a great question on Limited Death. It will be 3 months. It'll be, I think it's exactly 3 months.
It ends a few weeks after Easter.
Mm-hmm.
I did see there's a great question for you.
Yeah, I see Hannah asked, do PCs have preset backstories, basically, or can it be a returning character that turns into an NPC-PC based off of connecting to the admin story? I would say they all have to be new. This is going to be somebody that, Like, these are characters that are baked in a part of the admin factions. So unless there was a very, very compelling good reason why your character would make that jump and be a part of these groups, which I don't really think there is one, because everybody left Vardarin, so you can't have joined Noctum because you weren't in Vardarin in the last 200 years. And the other group that's very joinable is has been in Vardarin for the last 200 years. So you wouldn't have been a part of them because you wouldn't have been here. Yeah. And then I saw Cran bumped a question, but I don't know what it is. Is there going to
Someone
be...
had asked earlier in the meeting when you were talking about frog jumping. And you get stuck in a castle, can people do the unstuck command to get out?
I think if it's going to be... If the person that you are in the castle of is not going to be online to catch you in a reasonable amount of time, like if you would be stuck in the castle for more than 45 minutes, you may unstuck. Just know that we're not going to give you your bag. Your bag is lost as a consequence of your misbehavior. Them's the kick. If you break into somebody's house and you get stuck in a pit, congratulations, you're pit boy now. Say goodbye to your potions. Cran asked if there was going to be any changes made to coordination to help with last week crunch time. If someone on coordination wants to answer that question.
Yeah, that's about event submissions. Yes, that's going to be part of the new form process, and we will likely have an earlier cutoff date for submissions for events for the last week. We'll have a calendar. We're going to try and work out a way that lets people reserve spots on calendars, essentially, that's visible. I won't promise that, but that is what we're currently trying to get functional, so that basically once your event is approved, we pop it on this calendar. Ideally, the calendar is visible to like most people. Listen, Blair, don't promise things until we've actually fleshed it out. But that's where we're looking to go with it.
Emily,
Yeah.
you asked a great question about research tickets. Research tickets will likely have a form that will need to be filled out because we don't want season-long tickets anymore. But RPO ticket changes will be more fleshed out and information given in the coming weeks.
Something that we totally forgot to mention is that we are going to also have admin time blocks scheduled every weekend where you cannot schedule a player event. Just to avoid, because, some of us that are on RPO, like myself, I'm not on coordination, and so I have no idea when player events are. And so if people don't put them on the calendar, we had an issue last season where I accidentally scheduled an event over a player event and had no idea because it wasn't on the calendar and I'm not in coordination, so I don't see those tickets. And so it was my fault, but it would still, we really want people to use the calendar, but also to just avoid it. We are going to have a time block every single weekend that's at a slightly different time. That's like 3 hours that we will keep reserved for server events, whether that be story events or unlock events. And it'll move a little bit, so it's not exactly the same every weekend, but we will have those blocked out pre-season so that you cannot accidentally schedule a player event during an admin event. These are just the major events. We may still do random pop-ups, but we'll do our best to avoid, player events as usual.
If we haven't re-vocalized your question, please ask again. It means I've likely lost track of it. So, that's going to be RPO for which ticket category for NPC PCs. When we have the idea more fleshed out, you could probably just open in general RPO if you're interested now. There's going to be a lot of changes coming to the actual ticket bot, but I can't push all of them because they contain some spoilers. So you'll see changes to ticket options over the next coming weeks as we finalize some of our ideas. So look forward to that. There's a Rotling question.
Yeah, for
Naku, about-
Rotlings, are they
okay.
able to block out another Rotling's emotions? It'll function the same way that it did last season, where you both roll like a d20 against each other, and whoever gets the higher roll wins. If you tie, you just reroll. Jazz hands.
Story question about if Megara is still dead.
Amagara's fucking dead. We will have a we'll probably have a way to kill her for gear, probably, but yeah, she's dead. She's gone. Goodbye.
Story question about rituals and entropy coming back. And character creation, you can do player support if it's general questions. If it's about the story, you'll want an RPO question ticket
I
thing.
see a question from Snow about Rotlings and the mortality contract if they're compatible.
They are.
No. You can start as a human and transition into a Rotling, but you cannot be both.
Correct. Yeah, you do not get access to the entropic bonds until you die. So if you are an entropic human, you do not have access to the entropic bonds until you become a full Rotling upon death. So they're compatible in the sense that you can transition from one to the other, but they're not concurrent. Rotlings will also not have a contract. You'll just have like a tag that gives you access to their channel. And if you die, obviously let us know so we can take your tag away.
Yes, you can, Lothric. You can make a
Hold
new
on.
character starting.
I thought what Naku had said was that they
You
had
can
to have been a
whitelist a
Rotling.
new one. You can
Okay.
whitelist a new Rotling. You have to have been afflicted last season to have a returning character be a Rotling.
Gotcha.
Correct, yep. So if you want to play an entropic daemon, who is a Rotling because they're entropic by nature, yes, you can do that. Just know that if you were like a blood daemon last season who never had the, you never got the affliction contract, you can't have it. It is important to mention you have to have accepted the contract. If you had it as like the burst thing where you had it for a couple minutes upon reconstitution but did not actually accept the contract, you cannot be a Rotling.
Veru's question about ticket system being updated. You can open tickets even while we're updating the system. It's just which tickets you'll open will change once we put forward that update. Duke already answered that one. Yasad's question, what research stuff was stated to have results showing up in the upcoming season? I think that's going to be somewhat answered when more of the lore is published.
Yep, and if you have something you were working on last season, make a ticket about it, and we'll figure it out. Because it's been like 3 months since any of us really looked at old tickets. So, 2 months that most of us didn't even look at the Discord. So just poke us once it gets closer to the season. We'll figure something out.
Hell tier, can a PC character that becomes important through other means become an NPC PC, or are they just important? Naku?
So NPC PCs are more akin of what happened with Thorin last season, where once he had become fully encased, he was a part of like he suffered a full ego death and was a part of like the Scions of Entropy. So we only took him off of the shelf for specific things. His appearances in places was, had to be approved. So if you want like to join Noctum, like your player character, you're like, I'm going to join Noctum. You can join Noctum while still being a player character. NPC PCs isn't really something that you like, we're just going to like randomly transition people into, It'll be, oh my God, Granite, you're fine. It's more like you can join NPC factions on a player character without being an NPC PC. Yeah, it's exactly as Ev said. It's a thing you are or you aren't. You are either a tool for the story or you're engaging with the story as a player character.
Thorn was a special case transition, and understand that if that does happen to you, like if that's something that you would navigate towards, you are giving up some agency to become that vehicle for the story. When you become an
Uh,
NPC PC, like new definitions are imposed upon the.
So, two questions came up that I want to answer kind of uh, back to back. Emily asked a question about um, making tickets for stuff that is player created stories. If, and we had this happen a lot last season where someone would make a ticket about something that a player came up with as part of their story. Um, if the admins do not have oversight on it, you won't get any help from us in the ticket. So, like, the Pontiff's ash marks, or someone had like some kind of coin last season. Those aren't things that you can make tickets about to research and get more info because we didn't write them. It's not our story. And then someone had brought back up the breaking out of the home you snuck in and got trapped in. Um, you can, I believe it follows the kidnapping rules, and or you can unstuck yourself. We won't give you back your bag because if you get stuck sneaking around, you got to have some kind of consequence to getting stuck sneaking around.
Yeah, you cannot break walls. If you get kidnapped, you can hypothetically like golem your way out of a building. We're not going to let you do that if you break your way into a house. If you fall down a hole and you are stuck in a hole, you cannot drop a golem, you cannot break down doors. You are stuck in that hole until somebody lets you out or you unstuck. Yep. And you lose your bag because that's the price of crime. You cannot break into somebody's house and then pop a golem and go through their walls and break into their room and breach their castle. That's we're not going to let you do that. If you fuck around while breaking into people's homes, you're going to find out, and that find out is going to be losing your bag.
Factions for tags are the same requirement as always. Where if you have a sigil and a half's worth of people, we will give you a tag to more easily communicate. Sigil size. Last season it was 12 was the number. We haven't settled on a sigil size for the season yet. So that number will be adaptive based on what we end up with. Because that was part of the feedback form, but it was a tie. It was 8 people to a sigil and 12 people for a faction tag. But then the sigil number jumped to 12. Yeah, the sigil size was something we asked for feedback for from y'all on the feedback form, and it was a tie, so it's under discussion. Maybe I'm missing context on the. Are y'all saying that if you're trapped in someone's home for 40 minutes and they're home but ignoring you or just don't know you're there? Like what's the actual question there? You still cannot break out yourself. You would just be unstuck. Like if they know that you have intruded in their home and are currently ignoring you, that's your own fault.
Yeah, because they also might not drop if they're in the middle of a big event. They're probably not going to drop their event to come get you out. That's just unreasonable to ask.
Yeah, the big difference here is the concept of, did the person kidnap you and bring you into their home themselves, or did you sneak your way into the person's house of your own initiative? If you're going out of your way to get inside someone's house, you can't bust your way out. But if someone kidnaps you and grabs you and pulls you into their home, after the 40-minute mark, you could fight your way out.
Ev, could you elaborate? Because I'm having a hard time understanding what the full context of the question is, please. Or provide an example so that I can understand what the potential problem is, so we can think of a solution. Even if you break in by frog hopping or whatever, if the homeowner is online, are you putting yourself in the form? Yes, even if they're online. You could use the doorbell channel to ping them that, like, they can feel that an unknown presence is in their castle or something. If you want them to try and find you having broken in. But yes.
It'll be codified in the rules before the season starts.
Yeah, we'll have it fairly elaborated. If you sneak into somebody's house, you probably shouldn't be allowed to just unstuck willy-nilly if they're around, so you can't just unstuck to escape. The consequence is the same way. Yes, that's the current intended plan, is exactly what you've outlined, is that if you get stuck, you wait 40 minutes and you can unstuck, and you are more than welcome to use the doorbell channel to announce that there feels like there's an intruder in their home if you don't want to wait the 40 minutes and they have the ability to come notice you and potentially free you. They don't have to. But that is the intended way it is working, is the way you've described it. Okay. So yeah, see, I was just struggling to understand what y'all were asking. We likely. Well, I'll let someone from RPO handle Chrismel's question.
Yeah, Charismel, that's so like factions, in the way that we have them run for players is like, you get, or like the Shepherds of Ash from last season, or Gilded Compass, or you have, in the past it's been 15 friends. You get a tag so you can send mail to all 15 friends, like House of Turnus was. Um, you can't really make a faction in the sense of how there are NPC or admin run factions, because there's a lot of different things that go into that, such as having admin run NPCs. Now, if you're just trying to say like, oh, I have this group of people and there's people I communicate with that are outside of Ardoran, make a ticket about it and we'll give us more detail and we can talk about it more in depth.
You do unstuck to get out of a house. I'm gonna say this now. Please don't flavor it as your character killing themselves in any way. Just be like, I'm gonna go back to my coffin and then unstuck. Don't be like stabs themselves or like emote killing yourself in any way. Suicide still applies. Don't emote or just be like, I'm going back to my coffin. Bye. Just throw a smoke bomb and disappear back to your coffin. Please don't kill yourself. We'll still treat that as a rule break. Unstuck. Woo. Look over there! And then be away. Okay? Yes, thank you.
All right. Again, if we haven't reworded your question verbally, please ask again. If you burn in the sunlight because there's nowhere to hide because you're stuck in a 1x1, that's just the way it is. You perished.
If you're scared about having consequences from sneaking into castles, maybe not a good idea to sneak into a castle.
Yeah, even that's a good, like, little RP bit you can do to get out of the situation. Just know the same rules as all banned RP topics applies here. So yeah. Any other pressing questions as we come up to the halfway mark on the hour? We will likely wrap this up in the next 6 minutes. That's a Rotling question.
Yep. You will still have the glow. Yes, and it will still bleed through your barrel disguises. You do not have the ability to turn it off. You are a shiny, shiny bitch. Congratulations.
As far as Sidra's question about value of life, we are making things more comprehensive, and we'll have more information about value of life coming out soon.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
one of
it's
the.
not fully fleshed out, but I understand what you mean.
Yeah, we had a bit of an issue with people also just like brute forcing bosses and dying like 30 times for the sake of like oh, we're going to kill, Adam even though we're not at the gear score for that. And we're just going to die 30 times each as we attempt to brute force Adam. That's not value of life RP. Every reconstitution needs to be treated as though it is your last, whether it is to an NPC, whether it's to Quincy, whether it's to another player character, whether you're dying to bandits on the road. Yes, maybe your character's a little cocky and they're like, I probably won't die. There should be that little nugget of fear at the back of their head. Sometimes every constitution has the chance to be your last. Please take death seriously. We are having ongoing conversations about how we're going to approach the changes to enforcing value of life, but that is something that is very, very, very on our radar for next season. We will be actually bonking people for doing things like brute forcing bosses or dying to an NPC and being like, I'm fine though, actually. Immediately pops up. We are also still having the conversation about the NPC death timer on whether or not that will stay the same as it was last season, where it's 10 minutes instead of player 15 minutes, or if we're just going to make them both 15. Stay tuned.
We are also having conversations about if you try to death run and hit your face against an NPC who keeps smacking you down, we are talking about consequences to that too. Just so everyone is clear, because that was an issue last season, which is why the timers did come up.
Alrighty. Does anyone else have any other questions? Pop them in chat so we can see.
Nasdar is always AFK.
Alito, we don't know what the sigil member limit is, the whole tide. So we need to have another conversation about that. We'll release, I believe castle specs will be the same as last season, yes? Size-wise?
That's currently the plan.
Mm-hmm. We'll let you know when we know what sigil sizes are going to be.
Yeah, like I said, the vote was a tie, so it's currently under discussion which option we try this season. There may be region locks that will be released closer to season start, or you'll find out when you get in.
Talon asked if NPCs, villains will have their skill sets done to remove high mobility. Yes, none of our NPCs will have the ability to climb walls, fly, or like shoot major gaps, or walk through walls. That's not something they'll do. The Oasis Spirit will still be around, so he may randomly show up in your living room, but it's a non-entity that does not want to hurt you, so it's probably just delivering a quest item.
How is the crow after 200? I don't know.
Crow is alive and well, but they may not. Well, find out.
You'll have to look for clues. There's no rule on joining others for sigils and events. That's always been allowed. We've even helped facilitate it to allow people to make mega sigils for certain events. Yes, we have the ability. Our mods help us. Our admins can do mega sigils. It was a big hit, and for some events, they will return. No, greater spirits will still put you back. That's not changing.
If you
It
get
may still require a ticket to get you back into the right place if we somehow missed you, but we will get everyone at some point.
If you get stuck in like an open world like free build structure on something, you can open a ticket and we'll save you. Us not saving you specifically applies to breaking into other player homes or breaking into NPC homes. If you break into the Noctum house, we're not going to teleport you out if you get stuck in the death pit. One thing else that we wanted to mention is our stance on returning humans. If you want to play a human that was a human last season, because it has been 200 years, in most cases, they need to have become a vampire. They need to have been turned and, become a rotling, become a vampire. If you are wanting to be an immortal human of some kind, you need to have a very, 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 very good and compelling reason as to why they are still alive and still human. And you will need to put that reason in your whitelist. And it cannot be just one line of like, oh, he's just a cool wizard, so he's immortal. You need to have like a reason as to why he's, immortal. So put some time, put some thought into it. Think about, does this make sense? And be prepared for us to say no if your reasons are not compelling enough. We may send you back to the drawing board or advise you to explore another avenue. We will not be having familiars this season. We will never probably ever use the familiars mod ever again.
In fact, there's a fairly solid chance Bloodcraft does not make a return. We are ripping the portions we want out of it, but the Force Spells is likely going to make a return. But that might be the only thing, and there is an update coming to ban spells plus passives because of how Force Spells interacts. So, that's kind of where we're at. That we don't have that finalized, so I don't want to tell you what is and isn't happening on that one just yet. Yes, business hearts will still be a thing. Once we announce castle heart limits, that will be included as part of it. Thank you for bringing it back up because I have completely missed that. Yeah. I mean, no harm in asking it twice. I didn't re-vocalize it, so if it got answered in text, it could have been missed by others as well. Professions, probably not. We may in the future look at a way of returning the idea of professions, but what we often found out was while it was cool to say your character specialized in something, the way Bloodcraft handled it by adding extra stats to your character became a balancing nightmare. On top of people took it a bit too seriously and would have entire sweatshops made to just maxing it so they could say that they could make it, and that's not really immersive to walk into your house and see 47 forges. So likely if professions, they're not returning this season, but if they do return, it'll be in a modified form. That will be the Castle Heart question will be answered with sigil sizes because we'll tie it together. I don't. RPO can answer the shadow magic question.
Vardarin has been abandoned for so long. I wonder what the Cult of the Damned is up to. Don't worry about it.
Okay. So Fafo.
You had shadow magic or holy magic or anything at the end of last season, you do have to earn it again. We won't just give you any gimmies. If you were doing anything, like if you had shadow magic at the end of last season, you do have to go through a process to get things again. We are changing the way that we dispense skills as well. So you must FAFO again to get the thing. We are doing a reset.
The community meeting has essentially ended. We were taking questions for the last 30 minutes. For things we missed or things people were asking. Some specific stuff will just need to go to a ticket. Like we don't have, and some of it we just don't have fleshed out yet. So we were trying to get all the last minute questions before we call it to a close. Once again, the meeting will be posted to our YouTube probably within the next hour or two, depending on how quickly we can get it uploaded. It is recorded, so if you need to reread it, re-listen, whatever the thing may be, that'll be an option for you.
There's a question about Medium Magic Duke from Apple.
Yeah, so the out of character reason for stuff having to be re-earned is we want you guys to earn stuff again and not have carryovers of really powerful things. And like Naku said, we are changing how we disperse abilities. As far as the in-character reason for why Shadow Magic may or may not be harder, and other schools of magic may or may not be harder. Yes, things can be harder. Also, the big explosion of magic that left Vardoran kind of barren of magic at the end of last season, which is why you all had to leave, except for those who were keepers and their one house guests. Think of it kind of like a Alt F4 on magic. Things got reset to a more normal state. But that is a great question. And if you have specifics, open up a ticket and I'm happy to help you out and explain things better.
EV applications will open around the same time as whitelist. Which, in case anyone missed that earlier, was probably shooting for the weekend of the 3rd of January. And I think, for the most part, that's everybody's questions. If we missed your question or if it needs elaborating on, please open a channel. All the tickets are up and running. We never actually shut them down.
If you want to be an NPCPC, come open an RPO ticket. Let's talk. Let's cook. Emily, you cannot eat Veltraxis. I'm so sorry. It doesn't exist. Veltraxis has been a terrible accident.
Tickets for clipping in store will still exist. The store won't return in the same fashion as it was. It'll be a catalog on Discord where you send us the items you want, and then we show up and place them. And we will likely reduce the catalog because it was extensive and a lot of work, and we fell behind on quite a bit of it last season. So instead of making a worse experience for people, we're going to just make it simpler and more streamlined. So hopefully not have that happen.
Worth mentioning, someone asked if they can be an NPCPC and an EV. You can do both. They are separate roles. If you want to be an NPCPC but you don't want to be an EV, that is also okay. That's fine. You can do both. You can do one. You can do the other. So if you're not interested in playing like a very short-term NPC, so you've never applied to be an EV, but you would love to play a season-long NPCPC, come apply. We'll take you. Or some other weird combination.
Greater spirits entirely nixed. The only thing we want spirits being mentioned for is if you're stepping away from your character, your what are these devices we play this game on called? Computer. Fuck. I don't know why that was so hard.
Sidra, we don't have a set number of slots. We're still in the process of making our own NPCs. It's just like, because we want to know what kind of role you want to fill and what kind of role we know what roles we need filled. And so it's kind of like combinations of what works. Like there may be some folks that they're like, hey, I want to play a character that's very, very, very PvP focused. And we may come back and say, hey, we don't have any PvP plots like left. Like if you want to be a diplomat or you want to help us with this thing, you can help us with this thing. But we're not going to put a hard number on it. Like if we get 10 amazing, beautiful, wonderful applicants, we'll probably take all of them if they're all amazing and wonderful.
For Talon's question, we can take that into consideration for like some sort of word that's globalized that just means stop whatever is happening because it's either that's hard to say because in reality nobody should be getting to a point where everyone's uncomfortable enough that you need a full stop, but I get the use case. We'll have to think on it.
Yeah, generally in a worst case scenario,
Parentheses are
if
still allowed for check-ins as well.
yeah, yeah. The concept is that generally in a worst case scenario, if shit goes down and you gotta pause things or you have to do that, I mean, we'll discuss in team if we want to allow some kind of keyword. But the idea is that last season there were way too many references to greater spirits. Generally, it was very immersion breaking. So we want to encourage you guys to be more creative with how you say, even if that's like in game, you say, this ritual looks like it's really taken some time. But then out of character, you go into Discord and you DM the person, you're like, hey, we're waiting on admin stuff. That's totally okay. As far as direct communication in the video game itself, we want to lean away from those more immersive breaking statements.
I mean, part of what makes this space so special is kind of our community-wide dedication to staying in character. And so, I mean, while the Greater Spirits thing is the biggest thing, it is just talking about out of character in general. Like, rather than saying, oh, I'm gonna go get, like, a food spirit, just say you need to tend to spirits. People don't need to know you're eating dinner, you know? When you do stuff like that, it's immersion breaking. And we're trying to really... The Greater Spirits thing was the biggest offender last season. But, you know, trying to avoid any, like, direct allusions to out of character is best. You know, if, like, you need to coordinate times with somebody, you can just say, like, oh, well, we can meditate on a good, like, time to schedule this for. Like, just end it at that, you know? I must tend to spirits, I must rest for a while. There's a book I wish to study, I will be off. There's so many great, amazing, creative character building ways to say that you need to step away, that you need to, you know, log off, that, like, I recommend you do them. Like, give your character some more character with how you flavor your character needing to go to coffin. We really want to cut back on the modern lingo. We have a whole section about it because it's gotten pretty bad. Stop saying skill issue. Stop making very overt allusions to game, like, mechanics. Quit it.
To answer your question, yes, hard factions like Shepherds, Aegis, Oaksong are gone. There isn't really a you can't sleep with these people anymore rule. Like that was faction specific.
I'm going to mention it again because I mention it at every meeting. Remember, the admins are in your walls when we're going through logs looking for things. If you're fucking in party chat or whispers in game, we can see those messages when we're looking for other things. If you ERP in game, it will be a permaban. Don't do it.
Yeah, I really don't want to read anyone else's ERP again. Thanks.
Y'all are nasty.
But I think for the most part, we've answered. If they do return, they'll be in a very different format. The idea we wanted with factions kind of fell short, and so it needs to get thrown back to the drawing board. That's extensively.
did see another question of whoever has the name that's just a bunch of runes asking, can I have an NPC and a PC? You cannot. Your NPC PC, if you get approved and fall into that role, that is the place of your player character. You can still only have one. You can have one PC, whether that player character is an NPC PC or just a regular player character. You get one. You can't do both.
Uh, that's an RPO question. Are we having any regions locked on the opening day, or is it just boss locking?
Find out in character. We haven't decided yet.
Okay.
We haven't decided the boss lock schedule or if we're going to do regions lock yet. That's conversations that we're actively having. We will post them when we have the answer for you. The 2 waygates that were destroyed last season are still destroyed. They will not be back.
Yeah, I mean, any player is more than welcome to open up a ticket with player support, and we can put it on the calendar if they want to have like a rules get together. It doesn't have to be something we do. If you want to do a group study session, just throw us a ticket, be like, hey, I want to do it this day, this time, and we'll put it on the calendar for you.
We will have a rule change log channel this season as well, because that was popular feedback we got. Was sometimes we just ran into too many people last season that didn't know rules had changed. So we will be having a rule change log channel that will also include any season specific rules. So they're easy to find and very centralized. We'll ping you as a server whenever we add to the rule change log. So please keep up with it and pay attention when rules change.
I will also call out that there were a lot of concerns last season regarding the readability of the rules. We are also making strides in that direction to make them more accessible and digestible on a grander scale, with details to come.
Details to come, Spoon. Not in the same way there was last season. We heard the feedback, and if there is one, it will be accessible and more friendly on the eyes. Quicker answer. We can see if someone wants to do a voice workshop. I don't think that was one of the ones planned.
The ones I have planned right now are doing a one on conflict RP, one on romance RP, and then there was a 4th one, but I don't remember what it was.
And that brings up a good point. There is the recording of Daniels from last season, who is a industry voice actor, so you should absolutely give that a look. Yeah.
All right, last call for questions. Alrighty, well, it looks like we're pretty much done with questions, so I think we will end it there. Thank you to everyone who came and was asking us questions live. Thank you to everyone who's, listening to this in the future on the recording now. If you have any other questions, if you have character workshop questions, you're welcome to open tickets. We aren't quite geared back up to full ticket capacity yet because we are still working to fill out lore for next season and all, then write the story and the NPCs and all that stuff. So just know that responses may be a little slow. But we are back. We're ready and able, and we'll see you all in January.